Lauren Daly here again. Thanks so much for watching. I'm here today with Megan, who originally came to us looking for history and political science, something along those lines, with a plan in mind to do a master's degree afterwards. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Megan and let you tell her the beginning of her story. So we'll start with, what kind of student were you in high school?
Not great. There was a lot of family stuff going on while I was in high school, and I ended up moving halfway through my high school career. So 2 years at one school, 2 years at another. I didn't like my last school, so I didn't really apply myself because I had failed actually my American history class in my freshman year for the first semester. So I had to retake it as a senior. Ended up in this class in my senior year, and this teacher, the way he taught history just made me fall in love with it in such a different way than anyone else. He was the entire reason that I ended up deciding I wanted to do history for my degree. Math and science wasn't my best, but English and history ended up being my two favorite things, although I was a pretty average C student most of my high school career.
Nice. And when you finished high school and now you have this love for history, did you immediately know that you wanted to go to college, or what was the college plan?
Yeah, actually, I really wanted to go for history because that teacher had just inspired me so much. I unfortunately had a couple people in my life who really discouraged me from it. And I was like, what can you do with a history degree? Be a teacher? I was like, well, a teacher changed my life. That's not a bad career option. I went to Brigham Young University, Idaho for a semester, but I was 17. I graduated a little bit early just because of the move. And so I was like, first time away from my parents, didn't have to do anything. And I was not a good first attempt college student either. So I pretty much failed almost all my classes and went back home after first semester because I was also at the time pretty adamant I didn't want to take out any student loans. So I kind of ran out of money too. Ended up going home and taking a couple years off for university the first time I tried.
Wow. So you already were pretty dedicated to the idea of not taking out loans, even way back in your first attempt at college. Okay. So did
Yeah.
that play into your decision later to kind of look into things again and start hacking it to make it look
Absolutely. Absolutely, it did because my mom was always really adamant about fiscal responsibility. And I saw my friends who were taking out thousands upon thousands of dollars in loans. And I was just like, that's nuts. I was lucky enough to where I was able to get the Pell Grant every year that I attended all through my college career, even with this, I was able to get Pell Grant that covered a majority of what I needed. And I was just very adamant. It's like, I don't care how long it takes. If I can get through this with as minimal student loan debt as possible, that will set me up for a much better advance in my life after I have this degree, regardless of where I end up in anything I do, because I won't be starting my adult life with thousands of dollars of, unbankruptable debt.
Yes, that's amazing. Okay, awesome. So that already informed kind of how you were thinking about college. So tell me about the gap between when you came back from Brigham Young and went home for a while and then deciding to go to school again.
The summer after I attended Brigham Young, my mom was like, I really want to go to Europe with the family, do kind of like a last hurrah, because my oldest brother was in his early 20s and, starting to think about his life more. Yeah, so I took some time off there. And then when we came back to the States, I just went straight to work because I was like, you know what? Community college is going to be the best option for me because it's going to be the cheapest. And when I looked in Pell Grant, I was like, okay, if I qualify for the Pell Grant again, then it'll cover any classes that I'll need to take at a community college versus anywhere else. After working for about a year, I decided, I'm going to try doing community college classes again. So I did a couple of those. And I actually ended up switching my degree into IT. And then I started attending Mesa Community College. And then I was really looking at doing IT and I was like, you know what? I love learning and I want to be in a field where I continue to learn. And I'm good at IT, but I don't like it. I don't love it. It's just something I'm good at. And I don't want being good and money being kind of like my motivation for the rest of my life because there's so much more to it. I want to work to live, not live to work. So I was like, I really want to go back to history. And I had found a passion for archaeology at the same time. So I was looking at different universities all over the world. And I found one in Scotland, the University of Highlands and Islands. I sold my house. I used it to pay for my first year there, and I went. And it's the only time I took out student loans because even selling a house wasn't enough.
Wow, that's wild. That's an awesome experience.
Yeah, it was amazing. I loved it. I was there for a year and a half. Now I'm living here in Virginia. I had all these credits just kind of sitting around. I was like, I need to do something with this. I've gone to college 4 different times. I just need to get this done. And I was on YouTube and I was just looking at different colleges, and one of your guys' videos popped up. It was explaining what college hacking was. And I was like, wow, this makes college really accessible. I thought about it for a couple of weeks and I was just like, you know what? The worst thing that can happen is I talk to them and it's just not for me. And I kind of been a amazing journey since then. I started last June and I just graduated. So I got 2 years of college done in 10 months.
Yay! Congratulations, first of all. That's amazing. A lot of hard work that went into that. When you went through, especially the UMPI portion of things, did you think that it was harder or easier than you imagined that it would be to finish up there?
So much easier. I found through this that the reason I wasn't really that good in high school and traditional college was because I struggle when I can't go at my pace. I really can work through stuff fast. I got some Sophia courses done in a day. As long as I can work at the pace I can work at, it's easy. And I can take weeks off when I feel like I need to for a break and not feel pressured. The UMPI stuff was a little bit harder just because, you were writing more papers than Sophia or study.com or anything like that. At least the courses I took. I loved all of my teachers at UMPI. I think all the professors were really good. Most of them were really fast in their grading and responding to things. I found all of the classes that I took to be really fun and engaging.
Yay, that's awesome. Okay, so you did 10 classes at UMPI and you ended up majoring in liberal studies, right?
My major was history and political science with the concentration in history.
Nice. Okay, that's right. You did the actual history and political science degree. That's right. Most people do the BLS, but you went for the whole actual thing. Okay, that's awesome. So you did 10 classes there. How many classes did you transfer in?
I transferred in 90 credits.
Nice. Yeah, the full.
So
okay.
the full 90 is what I transferred over.
That's awesome.
It ended up being a really big thing for me just because I'd switched on so many things. I'd started so many things, but this was something that even at 10 years later, I finished and I got it done. And, it's significant for me.
Yay! You're definitely not the only one who cares. We definitely care, but I think our listeners definitely care too. So tell us, I know you said 10 months was kind of your total time from meeting with us. Of course, you had the credits previously, but from the time of meeting with us to finishing was like 10 months. What was your total cost?
Because I paid for Sophia for, I think, about 4 or 5 months. And then I did study.com, but I got the reduced rate because I went through you guys. And I only did one class there, so I only did 1 month of that. Yeah, so Pell covered all my UMPI tuition. And because in my first semester I had a 4.0 GPA and got on the dean's list, I also received a $1,700 scholarship from them. So I actually kind of made money. So I think with that scholarship and everything, I think I actually broke even on how much I ended up spending.
That's amazing.
Technically zero, probably.
First college hacker to make money from the school while going through
right. But I think out of pocket, not including the scholarship or anything like that, I paid maybe $1,200.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, because Pell Grant covered everything, and then it was just Sophia and study.com, and then transferring stuff over there. So
it's so cool. I think the common thread through your whole story that I notice is that you're always driven by values. So like when you sat down and said to yourself, oh, I'm good at IT, I know the lingo, I know the world because my dad's been in it. You also looked at it and said, okay, I might know the world and be good at it, but it's really not what I want to do. It's not the thing that brings me joy. I want to do something that makes me excited. Same with the not spending a bunch of money and taking out loans. You have always had this idea that that's something that I just don't want to do. I don't feel right about it. And you found a way all along the way to sort of make sure that didn't happen. It's just cool to see those things unfold and to be reminded that when we pursue goals that are in alignment with our values, we're so much more successful. And those things, they come out on top because we see an opportunity and we recognize this aligns with what I really want to be doing and where I want to go. And it makes it so much easier to follow through on it and so much more enjoyable because you're like, yes, this is an intentional choice that I'm making. So I just love to see that play out in your life.
Yeah, no, stuff like that has definitely been a huge driver in my life, just because, I know not everyone's religious, but for me, sticking to my values and morals has been drilled into me since I was a child, because people want you to be what they want you to be, not what is necessarily going to be best for you. And regardless of what you find your morals stemming from that are best for you, it's, sticking to that really has to be something that you strive for. Because if you don't have at least your personal morals, then what do you have?
I like that. Really well said. Well, I know you have some plans for the future. So when you came in looking at a bachelor's degree in history and political science, you had one goal, and it sounds like things have kind of shifted as you have gone along. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so initially I was looking at doing a master's online through the Harvard Extension School just because it was an available option, and I wanted to do museum studies because history, archaeology, anything like that, the artifacts of our past have always been super interesting to me. So I was really focused on that until I think right before I graduated. I was like, you really do like this. But it kind of reminded me of something that I loved since I was a child, has been reading and libraries. And, I was always friends with the librarians at school. I was a library aide in middle school. And I was like, well, archives are kind of like libraries. And I was looking at the jobs you can get with a library sciences degree, and you can still do archive, you can do museum stuff. It's just you have more options than what a museum studies degree would do. I like that. And at the very least, public schools always need a librarian. I think I like to emulate the adults in my life who have given me huge influence, and librarians were one of them. The people who work in archives are so cool and everything, but I can still do that with a library science degree, but I can also potentially do public library work or university library work or public school library work and, be a positive influence in other people's lives in different ways that people were for me.
I love that it opens so many doors for you and is still something that you love. That's awesome. Yay. Well, in closing, is there any last pieces of advice that maybe you would give someone who is in your shoes, maybe when you first started looking at going back to school again, this most recent time, and you were just thinking, there's got to be a way to make this work? What kind of advice would you give someone in that place?
I would definitely say look at your life realistically and what time you can actually devote to it, because that is going to change how you do things a lot. Because I'm very lucky where my job, while intense for the first half of the month, isn't as intense for the second. I could devote some hours of my work to actually just doing my schoolwork. And there were a lot of courses that I worked on papers. I was emailing papers between my work email and my personal email. So look at your life realistically and what time you can actually devote. If you have kids, it changes your schedule. The last thing you want to do is, be saying, oh, I'm doing these Sophia courses, and then realize you haven't touched it in 3 months and you've wasted 3 months of time and money on Sophia, instead of making sure you get the courses done that you need to there, and then you can cut off your subscriptions as soon as possible so you can move on to something else.
Good logistical advice. I love it. Well, cool. Thank you so much for joining me today, Megan. We are all celebrating your success and wish you all the best as you go forward into a master's degree in the near future, it sounds like.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lauren. You guys genuinely changed my life. You do a service that really changes people and can help so many. So thank you so much for doing what you guys do.
Thank you. That means a lot to us. Well, we'll talk soon, and thanks for joining us. I'll see you later.